We are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here for the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, January 10th. Hopefully, you're having a good one. Hopefully, you're settling into your New Year's fitness goals. And I posted up earlier on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page and also sent out an email talking about the New Year's 30 by 30 challenge, trying to commit to doing at least 30 minutes of exercise for 30 days to kick off the new year on the right track, to build that habit of showing up on a regular basis. And I'm just curious to see how many people are actually following through with that. So far, I'm good to go. I've been doing daily exercise ever since the new year came in, and I'm hoping to keep that habit alive over the course of the remainder of January and moving on into February and beyond, and trying to keep that momentum moving forward. And that's one of the key things we really want to focus on, is building habits, building momentum, and keeping it going, being good enough and good enough consistently. So we're going to get ready now and jump into a live Q&A video chat. So I see some people popping onto our live stream here now. So as you're jumping on, please let me know. First off, make sure this is coming through loud and clear. Loud and clear. You can let me know. Type in loud and clear into the comment section there, into the chat window, if this is coming through loud and clear on your end. And if you have any questions or topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition, health and wellness, any specific challenges when it comes to workouts, nutrition, building muscle, burning fat, whatever it is that you're trying to work towards, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chats. All right, let's see. We have Robert is joining in. Welcome, Robert. Glad to have you joining into our video chat. I know Robert is a regular viewer. We have Mitch joining in as well. Welcome, Mitch. Loud and clear. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. We have Brian joining in over on Facebook. And you'll notice we are streaming from the YouTube Total Fitness Bodybuilding channel, as well as my personal profile page over on Facebook as well. So welcome, Brian. Glad to have you joining in as well. We have Lee joining in over on YouTube. Welcome. Come through loud and clear. Much appreciated. Thank you. And Daniel's asking, is live stream on other platforms besides YouTube? It's on Facebook. So if we're friends over on Facebook, it's airing there through my personal profile page, as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page. So YouTube and Facebook, those are my two main social media platforms. I mean, I do have an account with Instagram and TikTok, but I'll be honest, I'm not very active over there. Right? Nothing against those accounts. It's just like, I find them, you spread yourself thin all over the place. So I like to focus. I like Facebook and I like YouTube. Those are my two main platforms of choice. Maybe we'll elaborate and expand beyond that in the future, but for now, that's where I'm focusing on. All right, so we have people putting in some questions there. And again, if you have anything that you would like to ask, fitness, nutrition related questions, feel free to type those into the chat window, and I'll do the best I can to help you out over the course of our video chat. And we have one that was sent in earlier. This one was sent in by Rocco. He sent me an email in advance, and that's something that you can do. Like if you're not sure that you're going to be able to make the live stream of the Q&A, if you want to send in your questions in advance, you can certainly do so. And that's something that Rocco did. Sent me in a question there just yesterday. And he says, Happy New Year, Lee. Have a question for your live Friday video Q&A. He says, can you detail and explain your weight training exercises and sets and reps in the gym and your weekly routine? He says, I'm very inspired by your total body workouts. Would also love if you could do an updated New Year's 2025 Lee Hayward full body workout video on YouTube. Kind regards. All right. First off, there's a lot to unpack with that. And I'm going to tell you something. I just recently I recorded, I should say, a podcast interview with a good friend of mine, Nick Nilsson. And we went into detail discussing different styles of training, different modalities, because there's such a broad spectrum of workouts that you can do. And trying to say like, well, what's your workout? And thinking like that's the be all end all. It's what's the workout that you're doing at this stage of the game based on your current situation, your current goals, and everything else. Like it's not static. It's constantly evolving. And over the years, I have tried numerous different programs, from bodybuilding specific hypertrophy programs to powerlifting specific strength programs, to conditioning programs. I mean, you name it. Over the years, I've tried a lot of different programs. I mean, pretty much all the mainstream programs that you can think of at one time or another. I've probably tried it and implemented it and probably had some good results with it. And I've created several of my own programs over the years. But for the most part, what I focus on now is generally doing 3 total body workouts per week. And I have some sample videos up on YouTube now, showing some typical workouts that I do. But generally speaking, that's how I go about it at this stage of the game. But I am open to changing it up. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we did a podcast yesterday, or recorded it. It's not published live. It'll be published next week. Myself and Nick, we recorded it yesterday. And we went into detail talking about some advanced training strategies that you can use to help spur on new muscle growth and work the body in ways that it's not typically trained with traditional weight training workouts, right? He's got a nickname. He's known as the mad scientist of exercise, mad scientist of muscle. And he has some very unique philosophies when it comes to training. And he is brilliant when it comes to understanding the science behind strength and conditioning training. He's been around the game for years. I mean, he's 51 years old and literally still hitting PRs in the gym, right? So, I mean, he's getting better with age and he knows his stuff. He's been around the block, published several books on the topic of fitness and nutrition, and really diving into unique training methods. So we had a very detailed podcast interview yesterday, and I actually started implementing some of his training methods today. I don't want to spoil the podcast, right? Because we went into talking about that, so I'm not going to kind of rehash what we covered. But I tried some of the unique training methods that he shared with me during our podcast, and I got to say, I got the most crazy pump that I've experienced in a long time. And I'm already feeling the unique muscle stimulation and the soreness, which is something that I don't normally experience with my typical workouts. Like I rarely get sore from training anymore, but I got to say, doing some of those training methods that Nick shared, I'm feeling it today, right? And I'm looking forward to implementing this into my training moving forward. So we'll go into more detail about that within the podcast, and that'll be published. Should have it up by Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. So look forward to that. I'll send out a notification when it's published live, but you definitely want to check that out when it's up there. But to answer Rocco's specific question that he had there, was asking about my specific workout. Normally these days, I'm doing 3 total body workouts a week, and the general theme of how I go about it is I like to hit each major muscle group with 1 movement pattern per workout, and then I will switch that up each time I go to the gym. So I have a series of different exercises that I like to rotate through. So I'll give you an example. Like maybe, we'll do a total body workout. So we'll do like a horizontal press, a horizontal pull, overhead press, overhead pull. Do some sort of squat or a leg press type movement. I'm going to do some core work. Probably going to do a bicep curl and a tricep extension, something along those lines. Now, I mean, it may vary, but that's the general template, and then we'll change up the exercises each time. So I'll do a different press variation, a different row variation, a different pull variation, for overhead press, overhead pull, vary from squats or leg presses or pendulum squats or goblet squats, or maybe even doing split squats or something along those lines. Sometimes I'll incorporate deadlifts or hinge exercises in there. So I usually just pick 1 major movement per major muscle group. So 1 exercise per major muscle group, and I go through that in a total body fashion. And where the variety comes in is each time we train then is we switch it up. So do different exercises to hit that same muscle group, and I kind of rotate through. And I find that really helps keep things fun and exciting because you're not doing the same thing over and over again. And it also helps prevent repetitive movement strain because they're not just hammering the same movement workout after workout after workout. And that's a common misconception. Like a lot of people think if you're doing a total body workout, you're doing the exact same thing every single time you go to the gym. And they're like, oh, that sounds boring. I don't want to do that. No, it doesn't have to be. Like there's a lot of ways to incorporate variety, even within a total body structure. And the reason why I like total body at this stage of the game is because normally I'm averaging 3 days a week in the gym max. Sometimes even like over the summer, especially, I'm probably only getting into the gym twice a week. So by doing total body, at least I'm hitting all my major muscle groups frequently. Whereas if I was doing a body part split, like hitting one muscle group per day, okay, if I'm only training 2 or 3 times a week, I mean, it's going to take me, a couple weeks or more before I hit all my major muscle groups. Whereas when you're doing total body, at least you're getting a little bit of stimulation, rest, recover, and grow. A little bit of stimulation, rest, recover, and grow frequently. So I find that works better for my schedule. And at this stage of the game, my main focus is on basically maintaining my strength and conditioning and flexibility and mobility. And then for my sports performance side of things, I'm really pushing myself on the bike. I do a lot of cycling training, and I compete in local cycling races. So that's my competition side. I'm not competing in powerlifting and haven't competed in bodybuilding for several years, but I have been competing in cycling races, which is something that I really enjoy at this stage of the game. So that's how I go about it. Now, I'm not saying that everybody has to do that, but again, to address Rocco's question, he wanted to know what I'm specifically doing. So that's kind of like an overview. And I would certainly love to put up some new current workout programs to share that. But there are some videos up on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel now. If you do a search for like Lee Hayward total body workout, you should be able to find it, because there are some of the most recent videos that I posted up there for training videos. All right, who else we have joining in here? What other questions we got come through? Sean has a question. It says, Dr. Mike Isratel says, if you work your muscles through a full range of motion, then stretching is unnecessary. Do you agree? Let's follow up here. Is the stretch the most important part of the lift for hypertrophy? Okay. I don't agree with that, but I do realize the benefits of full range of motion. And this is something that we can unpack even further, because there's a time and a place for doing partial range of motion training. There's a time and a place for doing conventional full range of motion training. And then there's also a time and a place where you can do resisted stretching. And this is something that myself and Nick actually discussed in detail during our podcast interview that we had. So again, I'm going to refer you to next week when that podcast is published. And if for those of you who are watching the replay of this now in the future, it'll be published up there. But just look for it'll be a podcast interview with Nick Nielsen up there on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding podcast. Because we broke this down, talking about the different styles of training and the advantages of the different modalities. Because there is a time and a place when you want to do like heavy partial range of motion training. There's a time and a place when you want to do the full range of motion, or even more of the resisted stretching side of things. But to touch on the specific question, I still think stretching is an important part of training. I still stretch in addition to doing full range of motion. So for myself, when I go to the gym and I do my workouts, whatever workout it happens to be, I'll always take 5 to 10 minutes after that workout and do some stretching for the muscles that I just trained. Like I'll take a few minutes to do that. And I find it's very helpful from a recovery point of view, from a flexibility point of view. I feel really good doing that. And that's something that I've made a habit of doing that right from the get-go, because even before I got serious involved with weight training, like I was involved with martial arts, and we really prioritized flexibility work. Did a lot of stretching to focus on increasing range of motion and flexibility for martial arts, obviously for kicking and things like that. So I really emphasize stretching in my own training, and I do encourage it for my coaching students as well. So that's the way I usually go about it. Strength training, and then follow it up with the stretching. It's a nice cool down after a workout. So I'm a huge advocate of it, and I do incorporate it as a regular part of my workouts. The question here too, is the stretch the most important part of the lift for hypertrophy? It does have an impact, but is it the most important? I don't like saying something is the most important and this isn't the most important. It's almost like when you look at people say, well, is training more important than nutrition, or is nutrition more important than training, and trying to give things percentages or perspective like that. It's all important. And I like to look at this almost like you would the legs of a tripod, for example. Like if you take away a leg of a tripod, what's going to happen? The whole thing's going to topple over, right? It's not that one leg is more important than the next. They're all important, and you need them all together. You need them all working in a synergistic fashion here. Same when it comes to training, when it comes to nutrition, and even when it comes to the specific styles of training. Like there's a time and a place for a peak contraction. There's a time and a place for a fully stretched. There's a time and a place for a partial overload. Like all these things come into play. And this is something it's not like this is more important than that. You want to incorporate them all, right? In different ways. Now, for most people, just going through regular full range of motion in the gym, I mean, that's going to get you, like that's the 20% effort that's going to give you 80% of the results. But for those of you who are more advanced and you're looking for like, how can I take it to the next level, right? I've already been training for several years. I feel like I'm kind of maxed out and I'm plateaued at where I'm at now. How can I go from good to great, take it to that next level? That's when you really need to start thinking outside the box and looking into some more advanced training protocols, such as what myself and Nick covered in our most recent podcast. So again, you're definitely going to want to check that one out when it goes live next week, because it really covers advanced training strategies and breaking down a lot of this stuff in more detail. All right, what else we got there? Have you looked at Sean Nalewanyj's supplement line? Him and yourself are some of the first influencers I followed. I trust both of you guys. I used to be in touch with Sean Nalewanyj back in the day, like the early 2000s, when the internet fitness was kind of in its infancy. But I haven't been in touch with him in years. I've not spoken to him or even contacted him in a long time. So no, I'm not familiar with what Sean Nalewanyj's doing or what his supplements are. So I have no feedback. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about him, but I just haven't been following him. So, I mean, he put out a lot of good content back in the early days, and we did some affiliates collaborations and stuff back in the day, but I haven't spoken to him in years. So I'm not familiar with what he's up to these days. Let's see what else we got. Let's just see. We have question here. This is an interesting question, and I'm going to address this one. Last question, Lee. No problem if you don't want to answer. Have you ever tried PEDs in your competition days? And I'm going to be totally transparent and say, yes, I have tried different things in the days. When I was getting ready for bodybuilding competitions, I remember for some competitions, for a fat burner, I tried clenbuterol. I think that's how you pronounce it, clenbuterol or clenbuterol. That was a fat burner that I tried. And I have to say I tried it, but I didn't like it because it was too strong. And what I mean by too strong is it's something that really gave me uncomfortable jitters and and a lot of muscle cramps. But if you go Google search it, I mean, anybody who's familiar with PEDs have probably heard of this, but it is something that's supposed to elevate your metabolism. That's one thing that I have tried. Back in the day, I did try pro hormones when they were available. If you're not familiar with pro hormones, they were an over-the-counter supplement in the 20 plus years ago. I don't know exactly the time, but back in the day, they were an over-the-counter supplement. But they've been later classified as, they're under the blanket of steroids, but they're technically not steroids. But when you consume them, they help to elevate hormone levels in your body. So it's kind of like a gray area supplement, if you will. And that's something that I have dabbled with when I was competing. Honestly, I can't say it made a huge difference, but I did dabble with it for sure. The clenbuterol, I did dabble with it, didn't like it. But one thing that I did use that I found was effective is ephedrine. And that's now since been banned I think it's banned in the United States, but it's still legal in Canada. So you can still get ephedrine in Canada. And that's classified as a PED in a lot of federations. Like if you go to a drug tested natural federation or something like that, that'll probably be on the banned list or the performance enhancement list. But that's something that I have used. It's kind of like a more mild version of clenbuterol, but I found it helped with curbing the appetite, increasing energy, and also has a thermogenic effect with aiding with fat burning. So it's kind of like a crutch to help make the whole fat burning process a little bit easier. Now it's not going to do the work for you, but it's a crutch, if you will, to help make the process a little easier. And that's something that I've used every time I competed in bodybuilding. That was one of my go-to supplements that certainly did help, right? But as far as like the hardcore things, I've never really like the growth hormone and all that kind of stuff or whatever crazy stuff. No, I've been very conservative on that side of things, but I have dabbled. So, as far as, am I 100% squeaky clean or whatever? No. And I don't claim to be 100% squeaky clean, but I haven't gone to the extremes of the other side either. But, fair question. And I just want to be transparent and answer it. All right. What else we got there? We got J Money. I've been following your YouTube channel for a while, but never commented much. Well, you're commenting now. Well, welcome to the conversation, Mr. Money. He says, can I make good progress using dumbbell-only workouts? I have a set of power blocks up to 70s. Can I continue to progress dumbbell only? Okay, follow-up question here. Thinking of push-pull legs, been lifting for years, but never consistent. All right. That last comment right there, that is the key right there. I don't care what you're doing, whether it's dumbbell, gym workouts, body weight workouts, CrossFit workouts, P90X, or God knows what. If you're not consistent, it's not going to work, or whatever progress you make is not going to last. Consistency is the number one thing. Like, if I could drill one thing home, like, I don't care what program you're following. If you're not consistent, then it's not going to work. It's not going to give you the results you want. And as crazy as it is, even if you're following a half-assed program or a program that's lacking in a lot of areas, like it's just something that's slapped together, but you're consistent with it and you're persistent and you're training in a progressive overload fashion, you can still make a shitty program work as long as you're consistent. Right. So you could have a perfect program that you're not consistent with and you're going to get shitty results, or you could have a shitty program that you are consistent with and you'll probably actually still get half decent results. So consistency, that's what it comes down to. Consistency over intensity, like consistency trumps all here. But to answer your specific question you had there, can you make progress with dumbbells? Absolutely. I have a full training playlist up on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding channel covering dumbbell workouts for all your major muscle groups. So literally you can do a chest day, back day, leg day, shoulder day, arm day, you name it day, everything you can cover with dumbbell exercises. It's certainly enough to get you started. It's certainly enough to start making progress, and you can certainly be consistent with it. But from a full practical point of view, dumbbells, you'll probably get to the point where you want to expand on it. It's probably going to start to get a bit monotonous, a bit, I wish I had more variety here. And you're probably going to want to expand and either get more equipment for your home gym or just join a gym. Like, I personally love going to the gym. Like, that's something that I really look forward to. It's my me time. It's something that I look forward to it. And I like getting out to a good quality commercial gym. I train at Omega Health and Fitness in Paradise, Newfoundland, right? Give them a shout out for any Newfoundlanders watching the show. If you want to train, you can certainly go up there. I mean, that's where I'm training too. That's where I've been training for the last several years. And I do some personal training out of there as well. But I love the gym atmosphere because, one, you got so much equipment. Like, anything that you want to do as far as the machines, the cables, power racks, barbells, dumbbells, benches, everything's there, right? Take advantage of it. And plus oodles of cardio. They also have some specialty equipment like sleds and battle ropes and, all that kind of stuff, kettlebells. Like, you have so much variety when you're at a gym, especially a well-equipped gym. So I just love that for that aspect of it. But with that being said, I still have a home gym, right? I mean, and it's a pretty good home gym. Like, I've got a power rack, I got some cable pulleys and dumbbells, and I can certainly get in a good workout at home. But it's nice to have both, right? I love to have access to the gym, and I love to have access to my home gym because it's like stacking the deck in your favor. I have access to train in multiple situations. So if time is not an issue, I can go to the gym, get in a good workout. If I'm pressed for time, I can still do something at home, and I'm not going to be lacking. If the weather sucks, like maybe we're in the middle of a snowstorm, can't get to the gym, I can still do something at home. Or God forbid, there's another pandemic and the gyms get shut down again, I can still do something at home. So I always, I got my backup there, right? I got the home gym that I can always take advantage of anytime I want. But more often than not, if I can, I'm going to get out to the public gym and take advantage of that just for the equipment, the variety, and for the atmosphere. I mean, it's just nice to be around other people and feeding off that enthusiasm, right? Sometimes if you're feeling a bit like, I don't feel like going to the gym today. Should I do it? Should I not? Him and Han, just show up, just walk through the front door And then once you're in there, it's like, okay, the music is playing, there's other people training, like you can just feed off the vibe, right? It just wakes you up. Right? That's like a pre-workout stimulant in and of itself, just walking into the gym and feeding off the energy there. So I love the gym atmosphere and find you can make much better progress. But with that being said, take advantage of what you have. So if you got dumbbells, take advantage of them. And just what I'll do, actually, I'll just grab that. I'll grab the link for you. Dumbbell workout. Let me see if I can find it for you. Yeah, home gym dumbbell workout. So if you just do a search for Lee Hayward home gym dumbbell workout, you should find it. But I actually have the playlist up there in the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel as well. I'm going to link to it there in our chat window. So I'll grab that. So open up the playlist tab at the top, scroll down to, where is it to? It's fear number. There's a couple of playlists with dumbbell workouts. One is just called dumbbell workouts, but there's another one more specific. I'm trying to find it for you. Just give me a second. Shit, where is that? Oh, home gym dumbbell workouts. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, full playlist link. Okay, I'm sharing it here for you now. Full home gym dumbbell workout. All right, home gym dumbbell workouts, because it's actually workouts for all your major muscle groups. So that's posted there. You can go check that one out after this video chat, of course. All right, where else are we to? I'm moving on. That was Mr. J Money's question. Awesome. And again, thanks for participating in our channel, in our video chat, right? I mean, I know you're not alone with that. He says he follows, but he doesn't comment much. There's a lot of people do that. So again, kudos to you for participating, and you're more than welcome to participate whenever you like. Let's see. We got another question here from Sean. Says, I forgot. What do you think of a fly press combo on a low incline? Fly on the eccentric, good stretch, then press on the concentric, repeat for reps. Seems you can go heavier that way. I'll try it. You basically just answered it in the last 3 words. I'll try it. Give it a go. See how you find. I have done similar stuff like that in the past, but usually if I'm going to do presses, I'll do presses. If I'm going to do flies, I'm going to do flies. But I understand the theory behind what you're doing there, because obviously you can press more than you can fly. So when you do a press, you can press up heavier dumbbells or heavier, in this case, cables. And then on the eccentric, you can get a heavy overloaded negative. So you could try it. The only thing I'd be cautious of is you don't want to injure yourself, because heavy negatives, especially in an isolation fly movement like that, while it can be an effective exercise, it can also place a lot of stress, especially on the shoulder joint. You know, in that fully stretched position, the shoulder and the pec in that stretched position is fragile, and it's easy to pull or strain or tear something. So you probably want to be cautious with that. That's why I generally, when I'm doing flies, I don't want to overload it. So I want to be able to, like, I'm not going to go heavier with a fly than something that I can lift with good form on my own by myself in a full range of motion. So if it's too heavy for me to do a concentric positive repetition, I definitely don't want to be doing a negative repetition with it, because I'm just afraid I'll injure myself. And injury prevention is key. I mean, sure, you may stimulate, maximum muscle hypertrophy because you did a heavy overloaded negative, but if you pop your rotator cuff or tear a pec or pull something, whatever muscle growth you just achieved and stimulated is like a fart in the wind while you're in rehab recovering from that injury. So injury prevention is the key here. So that's my only caution of it, is that the heavy negatives. I mean, I get it. I used to do them back in the day when I was younger, and my joints, tendons, and ligaments were a bit more forgiving, and I was a bit more naive and thought I was invincible. But now I'm more on the conservative side. I'm more on the injury prevention side of training. So personally, I wouldn't do it. But if you're feeling brave, feeling adventurous, I mean, give it a shot. But just heed my warnings there as you're going through it. We got Mark joining in from West Texas. Good content, 100%. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. We have Derek joining in. Welcome, Derek. Derek is a brand new member over on the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. Just came on board this week. So definitely looking forward to following along with your training progress over the next year and helping you to become one of our next before and after success stories. So glad to have you joining into our video chat as well. Welcome. What else we have there? Neil's joining in. Says, Lee, I want to convince my wife to lift weights, but she believes that lifting weights might damage the uterus and stuff and also cause harm in menstruation. Your thoughts? Well, I don't think that's an issue, but then again, she's probably not going to listen to me because, I don't have a uterus and stuff. So I'm not the best person to ask about this, but I would, first off, you can't force anybody to do something they don't want to do. All right. But you can kind of try and encourage her by presenting reputable sources of information, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. That's someone that you should kind of look up some of her content about strength training and share that with your wife, because Dr. Gabrielle Lyons, she's a woman, she's got a uterus and stuff. And she advocates strength training as a very effective form of exercise for health and wellness and like all longevity, you name it. So finding some reputable sources, preferably reputable sources from women, might be able to help convince your wife that strength training is a safe and effective form of exercise. But from a practical point of view, I think most people who are following my content and who are in the gym themselves, they realize that that's just a crock of BS. Like, you're not going to hurt yourself by lifting weights, assuming that you do it properly. And most of the time, especially with women, I know this is kind of the biased or kind of like a painting everybody with the same brush type of attitude here, but generally I find a lot of women, especially women who are afraid of lifting weights, they're not going to push themselves hard enough to get injured. Like they're almost like, oh, I don't want to get too bulky, I don't want to push myself too hard. So they're actually erring on the too conservative, not even pushing themselves hard enough to make really good progress. And this is sometimes why I actually, like, throughout the years, I've often trained with my wife as a training partner. And I find, like, if you have a husband and wife training partners or boyfriend and girlfriend training partners, that can actually be very complementary, because sometimes the woman's perspective might prevent the man from going overboard and ego lifting and hurting himself, but then the man's perspective would help to encourage the woman to push herself a little harder, because like women tend to not push themselves hard enough, men tend to push themselves too hard. Having that yin and that yang, that complementary mix, is actually quite beneficial. And I found, like, I've made some of my best progress working out with my wife as training partners. Like, even before we were married, like for years, we trained together, we competed together. I mean, she's got she's got a stack of bodybuilding trophies down in the basement, bigger than mine. She's done multiple shows, won numerous overall titles at local and regional level competition over the years. She's even competed at the Canadian Nationals back in 2012. So she's a seasoned competitor herself. And I pushed her, but at the same time, like, she also helped motivate and inspire me as well. So it was a good complementary mix that way. But women can certainly lift weights and do so safely, and then still go on to have children. Like my wife, she's a former competitive bodybuilder, competed for years, and she's had a child. So I mean, she's healthy, everything works. And there's a lot of female bodybuilders and athletes and people who've trained and lifted weights who've went on to have children and no damage. I mean, it's normal, it's healthy. But again, me saying that is probably not going to have any impact. But if you share some reputable resources from female doctors who advocate strength training, that might have a bigger impact in motivating your wife. Right? But don't force it. That I'm going to share that as well. Like, she may be saying this to you as a nice way to say, no, I don't want to do it. Because, like, even if you convinced her all this stuff, she might still say, no, I don't want to do it. And if that's the case, like, you can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. You can try and motivate and encourage them. You can lead by example. Like, you can go to the gym and get in your best shape and kind of like have that positive energy feed off on her, but you can't force somebody. Right. And this is something I had to learn the hard way. Right. Because back in the days, especially when I was younger in my fitness journey, I tried to be the hero to everybody in my family. Like, I was going to coach everybody. I was going to motivate everybody to get in shape. And if somebody doesn't want to hear that, they're like, Lee, shut up. We don't want to hear it. Like, I don't give a goddamn about your fitness journey or whatever. Like, just leave me alone. Let me be fat and happy. really, they were probably fat and miserable, but they didn't want to go to the gym. That's what I'm getting at. So you can't motivate someone to go to the gym who doesn't want to, right? You can't motivate anybody to do something they don't want to, but you can lead by example, and then hopefully they'll be inspired by your example and want to come on board. But if they don't, then so be it. Like, learn to agree to disagree and move on. All right, who else we got joining in? We got Eagle-Eyed John. Welcome, John. We have Sean. You're the man. Thanks for all the good answers and information. You're welcome. And glad to have you participating in the video chat, because without people like you posting up questions, there wouldn't be much of a conversation here. All right, so thanks for participating. Who else we got? Daniel joining in. Says, I developed a muscle knot from excessive manual labor. It's getting better through massage gun, warm rag, yoga stances, split machine. I have full range of motion, but get there slower. Deep tissue work. A muscle knot. I've never ever had a muscle knot, and it's something that I would have to, I'd like to know exactly what it is that you're experiencing there. Is it just excessive tightness? Is it actually, the muscle is deformed and you actually have a knot in the muscle, right? I'd have to look into it more to see exactly what it is you're going through. But you said it's getting better through massage, yoga, stretching, etc. So it seems like you're on the right track there. As far as deep tissue work, you could probably look into that. Deep tissue massage work, I haven't had, I gotta be honest, it's something I don't have a lot of experience with. I have had some deep tissue massage, but this is years ago. It's not something that I did as a regular part of my training, but I do know that a lot of people have incorporated it. Like, if you follow some of the advanced guys, like I know former Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler had videos of himself going getting deep tissue massage on a regular basis, and a lot of athletes get that. I've just personally never did it. I never had a full-time masseuse on site ready to massage me after every training session or anything like that, and I certainly wasn't going to go out and get it myself. But hey, if you want to look into it, especially if this is an issue, I mean, it's certainly, I don't think it shouldn't hurt. I mean, well, it's going to physically hurt, but it shouldn't cause any more damage, is what I'm getting at, assuming that it's done properly. But again, it's not something I have a lot of experience with. But from the sounds of it, what you're doing is helping. You're doing your own massage through the massage gun, the stretching, and of course, just training in general. A lot of times that's going to help to work that on its own, like just moving it, getting the blood flow, the circulation, the mobility, and the stretching in there. Very often that's going to work itself out. But again, if you're in doubt, then by all means, I mean, something you might want to get checked out by a physiotherapist or someone who can really look into it and potentially do some deep tissue work to help it. But again, I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, so it's not much I can really add to what you're already doing. Let's see. We have Greg's joining in saying, is it snowing where you at? I'm in North Carolina and it's coming. Actually, it's not. I'm in Newfoundland and we haven't had any snow on the East Coast. Now, they've had snow on the West Coast, and I believe they still got a couple feet of snow or more on the West Coast. But here where I am on the East Coast, we haven't had anything to stay on the ground. Like, we've had flurries and, a little dusting, but it's all melted again. Like, even this morning when I woke up, there was like a little powder flicker of snow dust on the ground, but by midday it was all warmed up and gone. So like, there's nothing on the ground here. I'm actually looking forward to getting some snow, because I like getting out and enjoying the winter. Like, I love when we get a nice snow-packed trail to get out hiking and fat biking. Like, I got a fat bike with studded tires, and I love getting out riding on the good trails when they're all packed down and groomed. But we're not anywhere near that yet. Like, we got nothing. The ground's not even frozen. Like, we've been having record rain and it's just wet, soggy, and mucky. So I would much rather to freeze up and have a good hard snow path than a soft, mucky, wet, boggy path, which is what we currently have. But nope, no snow for us. Crazy. North Carolina's getting it, and Newfoundland isn't. Let's see. Neil saying, just curious about Omega Fitness Gym, and when I looked it up earlier in Google Maps 3D view, the McDonald shop was shown first. McDonald's is actually across the street. So if you spin your Google Maps 3D around, you'll probably find it. It's a warehouse building is what it is. It was an old warehouse converted into a gym, and it's pretty big. It's like 10,000 square foot facility. But yeah, across the street there's a Mickey D's. So yeah, that if you're looking it up on Google Maps, you know, depending on how you spin the map around, right? You know, you'll probably find McDonald's. Let's see what else we got there. J Money is saying thank you. You're welcome, my friend. Glad to help out. Hopefully those videos get you started on the right track to your home gym dumbbell workouts. Got Sean Daniels joining in saying, Lee, what rep range should you be doing for strength? And also, I can't seem to get past 120 kilogram deadlift. Would like to work my way up to a 200 kilogram deadlift. All right. Rep ranges vary depending on the exercise that you're doing. And it also depends on where you're at in your training. And it's not just like heavy weights, low reps, light weights, high reps, or something like that. Like, it depends. Even with powerlifters who are training for maximum strength and power with extremely low reps, i.e. single reps, like in a competition, it's just your one rep that you do in competition on the platform. That's all that counts. So that's what they're peaking for. But when they're in training, they do a lot of different rep ranges. I mean, sure, they're going to do some heavy low rep training to prepare for their competition lifts, but the supplement with that, they very often will do higher repetition supplementary and assistant exercises. So it depends. And this is a general rule of thumb that I recommend for most people. Big, heavy compound lifts, like especially your squat, your bench, your deadlift, your overhead presses, things like that, they can be done for heavy, low reps. Like even single reps, depending on, you know, if you're training for powerlifting, I mean, build up to it, of course, but they can be done for extremely heavy, low reps. For isolation exercises, I recommend higher repetition and more time under tension. Like for a lot of isolation exercises, it doesn't really make sense to be doing heavy low rep sets because you're not really going to get much benefit from it. So they tend to work better for more time under tension, higher volume, higher repetitions. I actually made a blog post a while back covering like a list of exercises and suggested rep ranges. And again, that is just a general guideline, but it's a good place to start, right? High reps. I'm going to find it for you and post the link there in the chat. If you do a Google search for Lee Hayward, how many reps to build muscle, you'll probably find that blog post that I'm referring to. And I just found it, so I got the link here. I'm going to copy it into our chat window for you, so you can go check it out after our video chat. I'm just going to call it suggested rep ranges and post it there, so you can go check that out afterwards. So again, that should be, once that posts, there we go. That should be in the comments in the chat window there, so you can go check that out, Sean, when you're ready. Another one that I want to recommend for you as well, you're stuck with your deadlift. I actually have a 7-week deadlift program that you might find helpful. Let's just see if I can find that again. Lee Hayward deadlift program. If you do a Google search for that, Lee Hayward deadlift program, it'll probably pop up there. Let's see. Yep, it is. Perfect. Okay. It's right over on my blog. Deadlifting 101, how to do the deadlift. And it's got some video explaining it, but it also has at the end of that blog post a 7-week deadlift program laid out for you. And basically, it's kind of probably a shocker for a lot of people, but it's multiple sets of single rep sets. So multiple sets of singles working within different percentage ranges. So I'm just going to put that in there, deadlift program, and copy the link so you can go check that one out as well. So you got a lot of little homework assignments to do after the video chat. All these different links that I'm posting there into the chat window, you can certainly go research afterwards. But that is one of the best programs that I found for increasing my deadlift. And I hit some PR deadlifts after doing that one. The most I ever deadlifted was 530 pounds, which is, it's over 200 kilos. I'm not sure exactly what. I have to do the math here because there's 2.2 pounds in a kilo. So I guess I had 530 divided by 2. So that would have been approximately 241. 241 was my personal best deadlift that I did back in the day when I was a young man. So that was the program that I actually used to peak for that. So you can go certainly download that and try it for yourself. All right. Robert's got a question there. Is there any way to protect the ribs from getting hurt? Don't get in the boxing ring. Don't don't get in a car crash. Don't. I mean, unless you're planning on wearing like a padded vest or something, there's really not a lot you can do to protect your ribs from getting hurt, other than not getting hurt. I mean, I guess it depends on the situation here. I was actually talking to one of my coaching students, one of my new coaching students who came on board. I think he had a mountain bike accident or something and cracked a rib. So, sometimes shit happens. Like you'll fall down or something will happen, or you crack a rib. I know years ago when my wife was training in martial arts, she used to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and she ended up breaking a rib training in that, which obviously set her back for a while. But there's really not a whole lot you can do to protect the ribs, unless you're going to wear a suit of armor. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that question more, or give me some context of what we're trying to protect here. But the ribs are a very frustrating frustrating bone, because if you break a rib, like there's not much you can do with it. You can't, put a cast around it or anything like that. In fact, you want the ribs to expand and kind of go back to normal in their natural position, because if you were trying to restrict them, they could potentially grow back in a, not in alignment, if you will, and could cause more damage than good in the recovery process. So when people break the ribs, there's really not much they can do other than just let time take its course and let them heal. But again, if you want to elaborate on what about the ribs you're referring to, I might be able to give you some more context. But for now, we're just going to move on. We got John joining in saying, thank you for all that you do. You're welcome, John. Glad you appreciate it. Another question here from Sean. What do you like for lower lats? I feel that's where I can improve. I do weighted pull-ups and machine chest supported rows. Thinking of trying underhand high row for lower lats. The simple answer, if you want to target more lower lat, and that's an area, use more underhand grip. So you've already mentioned that in your question, but if that is a priority for you, try doing all your rowing for the next little while with an underhand grip, or at least a good portion of it. It doesn't have to be everything, but do a good portion of underhand grip work. So underhand grip rows, underhand grip pull downs, underhand grip pull ups, like underhand grip, just because that underhand grip helps to activate more of the lower lat. And I mean, a lot of it's going to be genetics. Like some people just have bigger lower lats, some people have higher lats. A lot of it is going to be genetic. But if you want to try and maximize muscle stimulation in the lower lat area, underhand grip work is certainly going to help, because it rotates the arm. I'll just hide your question there. So if I'm doing overhand stuff, like this is the way my hand is here. But when I do underhand, like it automatically rotates the arm down. So you're getting that lower contraction. The contraction and the stimulation is lower in the back. So definitely underhand grip for a lot of stuff. One that I found really helpful, underhand grip barbell rows, like the Yates row. Dorian Yates made that famous back when he was Mr. Olympia. But I found that a straight barbell is very uncomfortable on the wrists, because it really forces you in that kind of an unnatural position, and it can be hard on the wrist joint. So what I found for underhand rows, use an easy curl bar. I found that the easy curl, that angled handle, made it so much more comfortable, but it still allowed you to get the same type of muscle stimulation of the underhand grip. So very often I'll use the easy bar for barbell rows. Use the easy bar with underhand grip. You could do it like for cable rows. You could even set it up for lat pull downs, like attach an easy curl attachment to the lat pull down. Do your pull downs with an underhand grip that way. I found it was a lot more comfortable on the wrists and the elbow joint and everything else, but it's still allowed to get that lower lat activation that you're looking for. So give that a try. Some easy bar, underhand grip, pull-ups, pull downs, rows, different variations like that. That should help to spur on some new growth in the lower lat area. All right, we have Azim joining in. Says my question is regarding nutrition. We were always taught by our elders to have a high breakfast, medium lunch, and a low dinner, old-fashioned way. What's your opinion on this? Okay, yeah. What's the old saying? How's it go? Breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. I'm probably messing that up, but you know what I'm talking about. Same philosophy or same idea you just mentioned there. A big breakfast, medium lunch, and a little dinner. I'm more of a fan of. I mean, I'm definitely a fan of eating, your 3 squares a day, like having more meals, the better, right? I rather than try and have like one or two massive meals. I'm a bigger advocate of having multiple meals per day. So, I mean, I'm at least having my 3 squares, but I'm usually having some snacks in there as well. But the thing is, eat when you need the food. So if you're really active early in the day or you're doing a big workout early in the day, then yeah, get your big breakfast in you early in the day. And then if you're not as active in the evening, then it makes sense, maybe you want to taper your calories a bit more in the evening. So folks more on protein and veggies and lower calorie foods in the evening, and have your high carbohydrate, more calorie dense foods early around when you need it most. But that can vary depending on when you train. For example, like if you're doing a big workout in the afternoon, then maybe you'll want to eat around that workout window. So you might want to have a bigger lunch and a bigger dinner, surrounding that workout, assuming that you trained in the afternoon and you want to have a lunch before and then your dinner after. I would put the calories around when you need it the most. So it depends on your personal schedule and your personal activity levels. I mean, when I'm doing big calorie burners, like for example, like when I do big cycling workouts, sometimes in the summertime, like usually on the weekend, we go for big bike rides, like 100+ kilometer bike rides on a Saturday is a pretty normal thing throughout the summer. Sometimes it could be even bigger than that. Like my personal biggest ride that I've ever done was last summer. A group of us, we went and we did a 220-kilometer bike ride. It took about 9 hours of moving time. So it was a big ride, and calorie expenditure was through the roof. I don't know, like over 5,000 calories burned during that ride, somewhere in that vicinity. So it was a massive calorie burner, big day out. I mean, I'm eating all day long during that ride. Like that's the only way you can sustain energy for such a big activity. So something like this, like big breakfast, medium lunch, little dinner, like that wouldn't cut it in that type of scenario. So eat to match your energy demands is what I'm getting at. And you can eat more depending on when you need more. So if you're doing a big workout early in the day, then yeah, make sure you're getting a good breakfast in there. If you're doing a big workout later in the day, then make sure you're getting in a good dinner in there. Right? You want to have the calories around when you need them the most. I think that would be the most advantageous. Right? But hopefully that makes sense. But that's my opinion on it, and that was your question. What was my opinion? All right, let's see what else we got coming through here. AJ says, if you had a very tight budget, don't we all, but wanted to make meals which were high in calories and protein, what type of meals alongside snacks would you eat? So bodybuilding on a budget. I made a video about that a while back, and it was one of my most popular videos. We're due for a new one, right? We're due for a new bodybuilding on a budget video, bodybuilding diet on a budget, because that tends to be the most expensive thing. But it's not as bad as a lot of people think it is, because you can eat quite well and not have it be overly expensive. Uh, you just have to be smart about it and think of bigger picture perspectives. Because, like, I know some people who say, well, I can't afford to join the gym, and I can't afford to supplement with protein powder, and I can't afford to do this, that, and the other thing. Yet they're eating McDonald's, they're smoking cigarettes, they're drinking booze. Well, you can afford that stuff, right? Maybe we just prioritize your dollars in a different scenario. You might be able to afford to eat better and exercise as well. All right, so I just want to acknowledge that. But still, even for folks who are not doing outside stuff like that, you want to look at it from a a bigger picture perspective. First off, protein foods, like some of my favorite protein options, ground meat, like or mince meat, depending on where you live, whatever you call it, that is an inexpensive source of protein for most people. Now, again, it depends on where you live, but ground meat versus buying like steaks and things like that is usually like probably half the price. So that's a great way to get in some red meat protein into your diet inexpensively. When it comes to fish, like depending on where you live, you can buy up fish in bulk. Like you might be able to get it from local fishermen or go to a fish market or something. But fish is a great source as well, a great source of lean protein. Chicken, another good one. And a lot of these times stuff you can buy in bulk. Like I'm just thinking like at Costco, for example, like you can get big bulk packs of frozen chicken breasts at Costco that actually work out to be a lot cheaper than the small individual fresh packs at the grocery store. Even at Costco, like meats and fish and chicken and all that tends to be a lot cheaper than at the grocery store. So that's where I go to get a lot of it too. Now, depending on where you live, you might not have a Costco, or you might have something similar, whatever, a Sam's Club or different types of, club type shopping centers like that. That's where I get a lot of my meats, my vegetables, stuff like that. I get it from there. Protein powder, I mean, I know some people knock on it, but protein powder gram for gram is generally way cheaper than high protein food. So you can certainly make up a good chunk of your protein intake from protein powders. I mean, when I was, younger and on a budget, that's something that I certainly did a lot of, supplemented a lot of my protein intake that way. As far as just the general food, like your carbohydrates, this is easy, like oatmeal, rice, pasta, potatoes. Like these are foods that you can buy in bulk that are relatively cheap. Like they're not that expensive. Like you can buy big 50-pound bags of rice, or massive bags of oatmeal, big bags of potatoes and stuff, and it's very inexpensive, right? So that covers the carbohydrate foods. That's not a big issue for a lot of people. Vegetables, frozen vegetables versus fresh, you'll get them for like half the price, and they're actually probably even more nutritious, because a lot of times, depending on where you live, if the vegetables are not truly fresh, then you're not getting the full nutritional value. But at least with frozen veggies, they're frozen when they're fresh. They're frozen at the ideal time of picking and the ideal ripeness, and they can maintain their nutritional value even with frozen. I know sometimes it doesn't taste exactly the same, but if you're on a budget, like it's certainly good enough. So frozen meats, frozen fish, frozen veggies, that kind of stuff can be a cheaper option than buying it fresh. And of course, it'll last longer as well. I mean, those are some of the things that I would really focus on. And just the natural unprocessed foods, keeping it simple. Because very often when you're starting to get things bagged and packaged and stuff like that, that's where the cost adds up. Right? I mean, I see people going and buying, like these frozen dinners and stuff like that, and you're only getting like a little serving of food sometimes, but it could be $5 for this little half-ass meal, whereas you could take that amount of money, and if you spent it wisely, you could get way better food quality and way bigger portions if you were to shop on your own and do it properly, instead of buying pre-packaged meals and stuff like that. And of course, goes without saying, try to minimize eating outside the home, restaurants and takeouts and DoorDash and skipping the dishes and Uber Eats, and like, definitely, if you're trying to save money, don't go buying that kind of stuff, because that's certainly not saving anybody money. But yeah, that's something I could certainly make a new video going into more detail about that, or even do a podcast or something about it, like going into more detail. Who else? We got Derek's joining in there. Appreciate the support, Derek. Thank you much. He says, I find it difficult to hit my daily calories with potatoes due to their high satiety. The only way I can eat enough is to swap them out with steamed white rice. Is that okay? All right, that's you unpacked a good point there, and I want to address that. Potatoes, gram for gram, are one of the most satiating foods to control your appetite. And that's the beauty of them, especially for people who are training for fat loss, because you want to get full with less food or less calories consumed. So I'm actually a huge fan of potatoes and sweet potatoes for those reasons. It's hard to overeat potatoes and sweet potatoes because they're so filling. Now, I want to put a caveat around that. It depends also what you're putting on them. Like if you're drowning your potatoes in butter and sour cream and all that kind of stuff, okay, you're going to get a ton of calories, but it's not the potato, it's all the crap you put on it, right? So if you have the loaded baked potato, right, with butter and sour cream and cheese and bacon and whatever else they slap on those things, okay, yeah, you're going to hit your calories all right, but it's not the ideal way. But the actual potato itself, very filling, very satiating, and very nutrient dense too. There's a lot of nutritional value in potatoes. So that is good. I mean, for people who are trying to keep their calories in check. And it really depends on your situation. Like if you're a high performance athlete and you need to consume a lot of calories, like you think of people who are very active, and I'll give you some like what I mentioned earlier, like when I go on these big bike rides, for example, and I'm expending like 5,000 plus calories in a single training session. You need to eat a lot of food, and sometimes in order to consume that amount of calories, you're eating not so good foods, or you're even eating simple carbohydrates just to get it in you, because it's easier to absorb and easier to process. You don't want the stuff that's going to be very filling and high fiber and slow digesting when you need to have that rapid source of energy. So it depends on the situation, right? So when you're in those high energy demand situations where you need to consume a lot, then yeah, you want to consume foods that are easier to eat, and even sometimes simple carbohydrates like sports drinks and gels and energy bars and stuff like that. Even sometimes higher sugar, simple carbohydrate things can actually be advantageous in those situations. But for the majority of your eating, when you're not burning as much, then you want to have those slow burning, high satiety carbohydrates. So I will vary it. When I need to eat more, I will eat more, and I'll probably make better food choices or choices that are easier to eat more. So what you mentioned there, white rice, like that is easier to eat. If you had 50 grams of carbohydrates from rice versus 50 grams of carbohydrates from potatoes, it's a lot easier to eat the rice. Like you're going to eat it and not be as full afterwards, which may or may not be good. If you're trying to control your appetite, you're better off with the potato. If you're just trying to get more calories and more carbs in your system, it'd be better off to go with the easier eating stuff. So it depends on the scenario, right? And that's why I don't like to give these blanket one size fits all, like, everybody got to eat the slow digesting stuff, or everybody got to eat this, or everybody got to do that. It depends, right? That's one of the things that I like to acknowledge is the differences in training situations and the differences in nutritional situations, right? But it's good that you are aware of that, and you can use both depending on your circumstances. Right. So again, hopefully that answers your question. And if you want to elaborate on it more, feel free to reach out to me through email or messenger, and we can chat about it more. Let's see what else we got there. Felix Jr. says, it's weird. I lowered my protein. I lowered my protein intake and increased carbs, and keep losing weight and getting stronger on a deficit. All right. Lowered protein and increased carbs and getting stronger on a deficit. Well, the key right there is you're still in a deficit. So that's why you're losing weight. You're in a calorie deficit. That's the number one thing. As far as the protein and getting stronger, that actually kind of makes sense, because protein is utilized for building and repairing muscle tissue. It's more of a repairing nutrient. It's not a good source of energy. So if you swap some of your protein calories for more carbohydrate calories, you're actually going to have more energy, like glycogen and fuel to run on. Like protein is a very poor energy source. So by having higher carbohydrates, that's probably why you're feeling stronger, right? That kind of makes sense. Now, does it mean that you have to keep your protein intake low? Right. I mean, I would definitely recommend eating at least a gram of protein per pound of goal body weight. So whatever it is you'd like to weigh. So for example, if you want to weigh 175 pounds, make sure you're getting 175 grams of protein per day. Like shoot for that as a target. Now, some days will be a little higher, some days will be a little lower, but try to stay in the ballpark and be close to a gram of protein per pound of your ideal goal body weight per day. And as long as you're hitting that, like you'll have your protein intake needs covered, and then you can make up for the rest of it through carbohydrates, right? And of course, some of that's going to be fats as well, right? You want to have adequate fats in there, but most people don't have trouble meeting their fat intake, especially if you're getting your protein intake, because a lot of protein foods are also good sources of fat as well. So you usually don't have to go out of your way to meet your fat intake needs, but you do have to focus on protein and carbs. But that makes a lot of sense because the carbs are your high octane fuel source. That's what's actually giving you the energy when you're training. When you're in the gym lifting weights, you're primarily burning glycogen, which comes from carbohydrates. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Right. Bottom line, if it's working for you, you're enjoying it, and you're seeing results, keep doing it. Right? Keep doing it. All right, let's see what else we got there. Let's move on here. We're going to get ready to clue it up soon, but there's a couple other questions here I just want to address. Felix is saying, I eat a gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. Okay, so you're still covering your bases, but you're just not going excessive with protein. Well, that's fine. Yeah. So if it's working, I mean, it sounds like you're kind of dialing in your nutrition. And this is cool. Like, this is something that everyone has to do. Like, you can start off with some general templates and guidelines, but then feel free and to experiment and modify as you go, right? Like, that's the thing is, a lot of times people think, well, I got to have the perfect diet and I got to have the perfect workout. And once everything's perfect, then I'm going to start. It's never going to be perfect. Like, just start now and we'll figure it out as you go, right? Just dive in. We'll figure out the details as you go. So, I mean, hey, maybe your diet isn't optimized right now. Who cares? We can always make it better. You know, jump in to start working out. Maybe your workouts and your exercises, sets, reps, and training splits not optimized now. Who cares? Just show up. You know, as long as you're showing up and you have something that's consistent, we can always make it better as you go. But you have to have something to work with. You know, if you're sitting at home, you know, just scrolling through your computer and saying, oh, well, once I get the perfect program, then I'm going to start. You're never going to start, because first off, it's never going to be perfect. And what's so-called perfect for one person might be a total disaster for another. So you got to just jump in, figure it out as you go, and optimize it as you go. So it sounds like you're on the path to doing that. All right, what else we got there? All right, Derek's just commenting on his follow-up there. He says it's due to him being on a GLP-1 that he's on. So finding it difficult to eat enough through potatoes, so he finds eating white rice is better. And that makes perfect sense. Anybody who's on a GLP-1 or semaglutide type of medication, yeah, it's going to be hard to eat enough because that suppresses your appetite. So it totally makes sense. And I'm glad that you're actually focusing on meeting your nutritional needs, because a common mistake that a lot of people who are on these medications make is they just don't eat, right? Or they just eat whatever the hell they want. Like, oh, I'm not going to eat anything, and then just eat the same poor habits that cause them to get overweight to begin with, but just smaller quantities of it. And very often they can build nutritional deficiencies. You know, they can actually lose muscle tissue along with losing the body fat, and it just ends up being a disaster. So anybody who's on, you know, these GLP, semaglutide type of medications, you know, the Ozempics, Manjaros, or whatever's, you know, I don't even know all the different names of them. There's so many gazillions of them out there now, and all the generic variations of them. But, you know, they have similar applications and similar, you know, effects on the body. But if you're on any of those medications that suppress the appetite, then you definitely need to prioritize your nutrition, making sure that you're getting in your protein, making sure that you are still getting in adequate healthy fats and adequate healthy carbs, and focusing on nourishing the body, even though you're trying to be in that calorie deficit. Right? Like, starving is not what we're after here. We're trying to nourish the body on the cellular level and build muscle while burning body fat in the process. That's the goal, or at least minimize muscle loss while burning body fat in the process, at the very least. All right, so guys, anyway, we are going to get ready right now and clue it up. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you everyone who participated and shared your questions. I'm going to get ready and clue this up, and I just want to let you know that next week we got a brand new podcast coming out, and this is one that you definitely don't want to miss. So I talked about it earlier in the chat, but you definitely want to check this one out. It's a interview that I did with Nick Nielsen, the mad scientist of muscle, where we break down some advanced training strategies. And if you're an advanced lifter looking to bust through plateaus, you'll definitely want to listen to that one. So that'll be coming out. Should have it live, or I would assume Tuesday of next week. So I'll send out an email and a notification in advance to let you know when it is live. But in the meantime, have yourself a fantastic weekend. And I'll look forward to talking to you next week on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. Take care. Over and out.